So yeah, Candace Owens had a good point on not taking your kids to public school because they totally like use the school system. And she was wrong about it being a communist thing because you'd be more right more often if you just start off assuming it was the Zionists, the little Zeke, the Is-Raz allies. Not all of them. I mean, there's some people that are like in America and shit, and they, are like, what the fuck? We don't approve of what the government's doing, blah, blah, blah. So there's that. But they use the school system, they use their kids to like influence you and shit. It's weird. But it's something that they fucking do, and they like a lot of the evil things that happened to me happened when I was in kindergarten through third grade. So it happens before anyone fucking realizes that anything happened. And then they use that after doing a bunch of fucking, roofie molesting someone into their fucking adulthood. They start using that to create the wedge in the family. And this is the shit that Edward Snowden was talking about. And then it's like, oh shit. And then, yeah, people are on board until they fucking hear some more information. And they're like, yeah, essentially you're playing hot potato with someone's fucking trauma, while making yourselves feel good about it. And people wonder why I masturbate so much or something, and it's like, well, fuck you. It's fucking far less destructive than most of the shit that y'all are fucking doing. Even serving in the military. And then getting betrayed later, and you made the world a hellish place. And then there's the child protectors that get, tricked into hot potatoing, torturing someone, their whole lives and shit, and then they manifest hell too. And then I was working at the food bank for a little while. But then I was like, all this shit is laced with poison and everything, and I don't like feeding that to the children, you know. And then, yeah, it's like one thing after another. And then it's like, to a point where, it's actually like, literally fucking yourself is more productive and less evil than everything else. So. But yeah, that should be a new thing in the Bill of Rights, too. You shouldn't, force people's children into school because they use that a lot. What happened to me happens to millions of people, millions of children, probably every year. Definitely every few years, so yeah, I turned out fairly well, but some trolls will disagree, but I know I turned out really well, and I avoided many of their traps. you know I avoided all their major ones. There's nothing I could do, about people roofie molesting me into my adulthood, where you call it rape. There's nothing I can do about that, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about people, teaching me bad things where, I was a little bit into adulthood before I corrected or something, you know, I'm not even the same person I was 2 decades ago. And, this is something that I need to write a book about, but I'm having a hard time with the beginning because, again, the beginning is like an autobiography before I get into all this stuff, because I need to get to the present day, and I'm only kind of till high school, but I still need to touch everything up, and it's just so fucking hard to remember everything. It's not natural. I think maybe some more tripping sessions will help. I've been getting spanked, with that lately, so you know I'm starting to learn to do it myself at my own slower pace. The community wanted me to be a little faster about it, but whatever. Um, so yeah, I just was thinking about that, with Candace Owens. She got that, sort of right, but she mistakes the culprits, because again, she's kind of programmed into that fighting each other thing, but it's not the communist fault. That's not the communists aren't doing the MK Ultra shit throughout all the schools and all their manipulation and influencers. That's Zionism 101. That's Zionism 101, and they do it with their children, and they just masquerade as like, ooh, child protectors, but they offer their children sexually to adults. They're the ones willingly doing it. So I'm like, okay, well, why don't you guys just like be open about it, and maybe things would be a little, better because you're just open about it. There was that one guy that I mentioned that kidnapped those 3 girls and kept them underneath or in his basement and shit. Well, maybe if you guys are open and let like people go to Israel for their, underage sex workers, then there wouldn't be a guy looking to kidnap a bunch of children, and people are like, no, that's a monster, and it's like, but you don't really know that. You don't really know that. And yeah, he turned into a monster, and that was probably some Zionist bullshit intent too. That was another Zionist monster that was made, because they like probably molested him into his adulthood with their children and shit. So then he had a grudge against their children, right? And that explains a lot of the mass shooters too that they do. So it's fucking mind control, all that shit, MK Ultra. That's Zionism. That's Zionism. That's Zionism in the early stages before, puberty and during puberty. And then they do it on all your children. And it's just safer and they don't even realize it, right? They don't even realize that they're being influenced, and it's just safer to just homeschool your children. So that's the best advice I got, for that. And I wanted to make sure to shout out to Candace Owens. Queen Candace Owens does sound good, that does sound, it does have a nice ring to it, let me tell you. She'd definitely make a fine replacement for the Royals, right? So anyway, yeah, you guys take care. Sorry things are so fucked up, but we're going to get through it, and yeah, this is how we achieve balance. Love you very much. Peace the fuck out. Hello. Sorry if it's a little loud here. By a little waterfall. Anyway, so they just pretty much like use the school system. Actually, by like the first grade, I remember I had this teacher, Mrs. Hammerly, in the first grade, and I'll bundle up the toilet paper on my butt, like it was leaky or something, because people were sticking things in it, and then down my throat as well. I wonder what it could be. And then I was flexing a pelvic muscle like in class and everything repeatedly, which is like between the penis and anus and everything. It sort of makes my penis twitch when I have a boner. Anyway, so I was doing that a lot, like in class and shit, like, because of the sexual abuse. And yeah, just an argument for homeschooling your kids. Yeah, because they totally MK Ultra the fuck out of your kids in school, and they like covertly torture them and collectively bully them. It's all very intentional, and then, or at least most of it is, and then they play like it's not. Do the eyes wide shut thing. It's like, I guess, thanks for raping me with all your children, like my whole life into my adulthood. Weird, but yeah, they do that, and they do it on a mass scale. So then it's like, well, why the fuck am I taking my kids to fucking school? Exactly, right? I got all these motherfuckers encouraging me to fucking have a kid, for whatever nefarious purpose. There's just no good reason for me to have a kid. So you can put a gun to my child's head so you get me to like dance or some shit. Dance the way you want me to dance. At least your kids could have a nice life, type shit. And I'm not, in that trap. So yeah, people do like encourage me. There's like some Aryan Brotherhood gang members and shit that like try to teach me how to come inside a woman, like fucking in jail and everything. And like, as you orgasm, okay, thrust. It's like, oh, the one urge that I get to do, like thrust and everything when you're orgasming, do that. Really? Thanks for the tip, I guess. I'm still a hard one. Like, that's why they be Maybe like stealing, like, cum out of my condoms and everything. Like, it's weird. It's like, why was it moved in my trash can? And why did you take the cum out of it? I noticed that. And why did you leave right away? And now I'm starting to be like, oh shit, They have all sorts of little tricks to get your fucking, stuff. So even if you do use a condom. So yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it for the day. Strange, yeah. So by first grade, by first grade, I've been, roofie molested a whole bunch, and then it had a bunch of shit shoved in my ass, and then you teach me homophobia, like, oh, that's gay over there, that's gay, you don't want to be gay, do you? And it's like attacking your kid, and then you don't go home and you don't tell your mom and dad about this stuff. You kind of forget about it, and then but it subconsciously, is attacking you, and that's what they want, is all the subconscious shit, the shit that your kids don't fucking tell you about in school, the little, like, woodpecker picks that they do, to fucking eat away at you and your children and shit, especially your children. And then when they get roofied and raped a whole bunch, and if they get, start airing and everything, then they use that to divide the family. My father served in the Freemasons. He was an architect, and in the end he was like betrayed and shit, betrayed by the others, so it's like even the Freemasons are getting betrayed, and it's like everything's scripted out. Even the cults are scripted. And no, I'm not going to join the Illuminati. That feels like a downgrade. I'm like the deity here, so I'm not going to be downgrading my shit into your, like, little pyramid. I'm above the pyramid, and that's just the way it's going to be. So take your kids out of school and maybe homeschool them, and they'll be safer and shit. And they do hide behind the child protectors too. They're like, oh, we'll totally protect the children, and it's not like they're like raping, molesting children all the time, but they just need to do it a few times. So, I don't know who you could trust really, but maybe start trusting your family, because they do that family separation shit, and then get your family to, like, help out, and be aware of possession and roofie molestation and into what you call a rape. Be aware of all that shit, all those little tricks that they fucking do and shit to try to, psychologically bend someone. Even the little, like, oh, that's gay and everything. After we shoved a bunch of shit in your ass, Chris, and you're probably going to like that as an adult because we've been doing this for centuries, actually thousands of years. So now, we did this to you as a child, so there's like a 99% chance you're going to fucking end up like that. And they get you real self-conscious and everything, and it's like, anyway. So, well, that time has passed, but I had awoken in my 40s, which means, there's a lot of lost time. So, plus I was possessed for most of my life because people are trying to hijack the messenger of the gods. So, I could, steer people in the wrong direction and not know it. And shit like that, because they're really slick. So I'm glad I got my shit back together, and this has probably been the first year of my life, or, aside from maybe really early on, that I haven't been, like, roofie possessed or some shit, So it was nice. There's some neighbors, some strong neighbors helping me out with that sort of stuff. That's good. All the little birdies. Do you see the birdies? No. Anyway, I couldn't get the camera angle right. So anyway, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. You people have a good day. Peace. Bye. Much love.